Hello, everyone, and welcome to the showing of Aviation in World War I, Different Elements of the First World War, directed and produced by a college freshman who has very minimal background knowledge of the topic, besides some internet searches, also known as Josie Gaither. In this presentation, we will be going over the topics of advancements made in aviation, different aircrafts used, and famous aces of World War I. Starting off with some background knowledge, in 1903, the Wright brothers created the first powered, heavier-than-air machine that flew with a pilot on board. Just over a decade later, the First World War broke out. Between the beginning of World War I in 1914 and the end in 1918, some of the most rapid advancements were made in aviation. Reconnaissance, which is military observation of a region to locate an enemy or ascertain strategic features, also known as spying, was used previously in war, but World War I was the first where they applied it while heavily relying on aircrafts. Pilots would often fly over enemy territory to survey any new activity. Once reconnaissance cameras were developed, a passenger would board to operate the heavy equipment for artillery spotting or documenting any new movement. Another new advancement were projectiles. Pilots couldn't use things such as grenades or live ammunition because it was too unstable to fly with. Furthermore, using guns proved too dangerous while trying to properly fly a plane. Pilots began eyeballing their targets from hundreds or thousands of feet above the ground and dropping bundles of darts for a widespread dispersal, basically hoping things went splat. Communication gear and radios became a new idea as aircrafts took flight. Pilots needed a way to fastly communicate information to the front lines. In the beginning, message streamers were used to drop information from the plane to forces on the ground. Some planes earlier on in the war were fitted for a telegraph system to send messages via Morse code. However, these did not have a wide range for connection. In 1915, supposedly the first air-to-ground communication took place. However, it was a one-way transmission, so the ground couldn't reply. In 1917, the company AT&T created the first two-way radio that allowed communication between pilots and ground personnel. The last advancement made during the war, and perhaps the most valuable when it came to aerial combat, was the creation of synchronization gear, also known as an interrupter device. Swiss engineer Franz Schneider created the first patent of a method to shoot forward through a tractor propeller. However, the most remembered version of synchronization gear came from Anthony Fokker. It was the first practical machine that was fitted to the Fokker Eindecker. This plane ruled the skies for almost a year before other countries caught up. The advancements made in the First War have shaped the current ways we use aviation in combat. Reconnaissance planes have become exceptionally stealthy and have the ability to not be detected by radar. Projectiles are still being dropped, but now it is out of the belly of the planes. Communication can be transmitted and received from any distance across the world, making sure that vital information is accessible in a second's notice, and synchronization gear has been perfected to produce more artillery fire in shorter amounts of time. The next topic of World War I is the different types of planes used. Beginning with bombers, the Germans started out World War I with the Zeppelins for bombing raids. Popular propaganda from the time depicted airstrikes with these large blimps. Unfortunately, the Zeppelins were highly explosive because of the hydrogen gas used to lift them. Things went kaboom. While the war continued, they began to make planes that could carry the extra weight of bombs, such as French Aviations. None of these planes, however, flew fast, so they used the cover of night to plan their attacks. Reconnaissance planes began with only a pilot on board to scope out territory. But as planes developed and had bigger engines put into them, they were able to carry a passenger to help scout and take pictures. Eventually, planes such as the German Rumpler two-seater were created to operate higher above the ground as to avoid being spotted and shot down. Lastly, fighter planes were the most useful aircrafts made during the war. Different versions were made, such as one with a machine gun attached ahead of the pilot with a crew compartment where passengers could sit and fire. Eventually, it was realized that a plane with a machine gun firing directly in front of where it was pointed was the best option. This is where synchronization gear such as Fokker's invention came into play. It allowed bullets to be shot through the rotating propellers of the plane. After the more or less perfecting of that device, engineers began focusing on creating even more powerful engines for these aircrafts. Our last topic in this presentation is some of the most well-recognized aces of World War I, beginning with the greatest of them all, Manfred von Richthofen. Richthofen was known throughout the world as the Red Baron because of his bright red triplane he flew. He is accredited with the most victories, totaling 80 takedowns. Other countries both feared and respected him because he was known to take extreme risks while gaining bigger rewards. His crew was known as Richthofen's Flying Circus because of their brightly colored and decorated planes. Ernst Udet was one of Richthofen's men during the war. He joined the German Air Force at the age of 19 and has been accredited with 62 victories. He is the highest scored ace to have lived the war and went on to become a stunt pilot until World War II. William Avery Bishop served under the British Empire during his career and scored 72 victories in his time. Starting off in the trenches, he became bored with the lack of action and enlisted in the Royal Flying Corps. Because of his success, he was made Air Marshal and became a recipient of the Victoria Cross. Lastly, Eddie Rickenbacker was a pilot of the U.S. Army Air Service and finished the war with a total of 26 victories. He was known for taking extreme risks in battle and even won a Medal of Honor for engaging in combat with 7 German pilots. He was able to destroy 2 of those planes before escaping. All of these men had similar mentalities when it came to aerial combat. They all thrived on success and tended to have little care for their safety. Many of them tried dangerous maneuvers and found themselves caught in poor situations, but they all seemed to do better under those circumstances. The war brought out both the best and the worst in people, but overall was a huge stepping stone in the progression of aviation.